Hey everyone, and welcome to the GRC Room for 5 questions. I'm Mike Andrews here once again with Karina Klever, and we're happy to welcome Matthew B. Davis, who's a Senior Information Security and Privacy Leader at ZAVIANT. How are you doing today, Matthew?
I'm doing wonderful. How are you guys?
Really good. Thanks for joining us today. So we're looking to get right into it. So without further ado, let me pass it to Karina for a brief introduction and the first question.
Great. Thank you. We're so happy that you're able to join us. Thank you. Thanks, Mike. I'm Karina of Klever Compliance, and we do compliance management as a service. We're tool agnostic, and we focus on the actual GRC principles. So first question, what part of cyber GRC do you believe that businesses struggle with the most?
Yeah. I think understanding their true current state of their program and then developing a long-term strategic plan is where they struggle the most. Because what we've seen is that businesses, they're very tactical, they're very operational, right? They conquer what's directly in front of them that day versus having a real plan in place. So it's one of the reasons that I'm constantly determining current state and developing strategic plans for a business. It's because they really struggle with that aspect of it. I also think GRC tooling implementations is also a big challenge for a lot of companies. And it's due to the time and resourcing that it takes to accomplish. Most businesses, they don't have full-time people devoted to administering a GRC tool like that. And it's why consulting firms are hired really to do this for them. It's a very difficult process. And I also think data classification labeling of information assets, I've never seen that done well. And I think every business is really trying to figure that out and figure out how to do that.
Literally, I just hung up with a client where we were talking about data classification. So it's absolutely, you got to start with the data. That's the heartbeat, right? I mean, classify it, map it, know how you're protecting it. NIST CSF V2 basics, right? Data transportation, storage, and processing with your vendors, right? So you're not relinquishing liability when you send your data over to your vendors. That's absolutely correct. Thanks for that.
You're welcome.
Yeah, we definitely think a lot on that about baselining the current state. Like we have a SOC 2 prep service, and sometimes we'll go into a company, and when we're doing the assessment, they're like, "Well, we know we have to change, so why don't you just like start changing us?" And I'm like, "Well, we want to see where you are today, because we don't want to change everything if we don't have to, right? Like the things you're doing day to day, you probably want to do them, and it might be working. So rather than listen to me, who you barely know, let's see how you do things and kind of go from there." So
Exactly.
So companies big and small, Matthew, are been having a lot of data breaches in the news. So what's one data breach that stands out to you the most, and why that one?
Yeah, I think Blackbaud, so if you guys know the company Blackbaud, had a ransomware security incident back in like May of 2020. And it stands out to me because I'm from Charleston, and that's really the corporate headquarters, right, of Blackbaud. But one of my best friends, because we're all in Charleston, one of my best friends is John Olson, who is the chief legal officer for Blackbaud, and he played such a large role in the aftermath of that security incident. I mean, he's telling me about working 15-hour days over like 5 years due to the number of legal actions that he had to, take care of. And that, that incident was due to really 3 gaps that they had in security. Weak authentication, really at the point of entry, so the bad actor was able to get into their network pretty easily. Then there was also a lack of an asset inventory, right? And they didn't know which legacy systems were still online after the attacker was in the network and performing lateral movement. And then there was a lack of vulnerability and patch management because that server itself had like 80,000 vulnerabilities. And so that's really one reason why that really stands out to me a lot, is that incident.
And that's really not very unusual. I mean, I hate to say it, right? We create these environments patched together with some duct tape and shoelace and a prayer, and right? And then your new executive manager comes in and says, well, I love this tool or I love that tool. we create swivel chair operations unnecessarily for so many of our people who are working the front line, right? So they don't even know which is the truth and which isn't. And again, that strategy comes into play, right? Does your strategy include drill, drill, drill? Practice the event before the event happens. That's the best time to practice it, because then you know what you're doing when the event actually occurs. So great point. So next question is, what's the most impactful GRC related advice that you've ever received?
Yeah. It's funny because I'm usually the one giving the advice, but if it's advice that I've received, I would say that relationships and buy-in matter. If you want to get anything accomplished within a strategic plan for any business or anything at all, if you don't have that, I mean, you're going to encounter bottlenecks everywhere you go without relationships and buy-in. So I think that's huge, and I think also being able to translate technical terms into business terms and make sure that it's really related to money and risk. That's some of the best advice that I've ever received.
Yeah, that's so important. I feel like we're cloned a little bit, pretty much agree with everything you said. Probably answer it the same way. It's like, especially now with AI, the relationships, building the clear communication, tying things to business, that stuff's been getting overlooked. And that's probably going to get even more common as companies leverage AI even more.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, we're really excited about AI and understanding all the regulations and frameworks around it so we can build that out and help businesses with AI.
And I mean, still to come back to it, you need your workflow defined, you need your data structured, right? You need to have your success criteria, all of your triggers. So in order to make AI really be valuable, because it has such a low rate of adoption long-term at this point, it's because they throw it on data that is not rationalized, and now it creates even more confusion.
Yeah. So along with that one, Matthew, what do you do differently that allows you to excel in this field? Like you mentioned, people come to you for advice. So we clearly, people are looking at you for that sort of thing. So.
Yeah, I think there's a lot. For me personally, I build relationships with clients and coworkers really, really well. I think I'm someone that they like working with, and I think you need that to be successful in the industry. If you're not good at anything else in GRC, at least be good at that. That's a part of it. I get a new certification each year. I'm always studying and learning. I think once you stop learning in this industry, then you're kind of a dinosaur. So I spend like 3 to 4 months every year studying for a new cert, which I think is important. I also do a lot of speaking, at conferences and events, which I think you need to do to stand out, within the industry. So, a good example, I just presented a 4-hour general session at the IIA's statewide audit conference here in South Carolina. And in June, I'm actually going to be presenting to the ISACA Midland chapter. So presenting is really one of my favorite things that I like to do. I'm also someone that has a tremendous amount of management experience. So, I've had the very best and very worst of managers over the years. So, it makes it easy for somebody to know what type of manager they want to be when you've had really the best and worst. And so that makes a big difference. And then, to work in this field, you also have to be very adaptable. So for me, like I could be on a call with a client talking about HIPAA compliance 1 hour, and the next hour I'm talking about SOC 2 or CMMC or something like that. So you have to be very good at switching gears quickly. And I think, I think I'm pretty good at that too.
Awesome. Yeah, we all have to adapt to wherever our clients are. I think that's the most important thing, because not all of them are able to literally hear you, right? So you can say one thing for a long time, and then just recently this happened to me. I start saying, okay, you're the castle, and we want to put a moat around you, and we want the drawbridge to come down. That's access control only when appropriate. So somebody needs to know that that person's coming to come the cross bridge. And then, you know, I get into the alligators and the moat, the whole thing. And it seems like all of a sudden I saw the light bulbs going on and they were like, oh, okay, I'm a castle. I get it. So, I mean, sometimes it takes that level for them to really like visualize and understand what we're saying. Okay, so last question. What do you think that the one top thing is that businesses can do today to strengthen their GRC program?
Yeah, I think, you know, step number one is going to be really understanding your regulations, understanding requirements, what is your current state of your program, and then developing that long-term plan for your security program overall, I think is a must, because it's a marathon. It's not a sprint. You can't treat it like a 100-meter dash. And also, I think a lot of organizations, they focus very heavily on technology. And I think they might neglect the people and process controls a little bit. So I would definitely focus a bit more on people and process on that side, because the human element is really where most of the mistakes are made.
Yeah. And I think to add to that, the inventory is really important. So know your technology, how it executes. But back to that strategy again, make sure that your leadership is aligning to those executable kind of functions, because the guys doing the executable functions might not always know that leadership is supporting them and wanting this from a governance perspective. The only other thing I would add is you never arrive with GRC. GRC is built, core principles are built with that continual improvement. So a control fails, you open up a risk management item, you mitigate it, you continue to improve and refine and optimize. And so it's important to know that you never arrive. You only get better with GRC.
Yeah, with Matthew mentioning that he does a certification every year, that's taken it to the next level. So I remember when I got into this field, we usually had like 1, 2, maybe 3 certifications. We're like, oh, I definitely need to get this. But now I don't see that happening as much. You know, I mentor a bunch of students and they don't seem to have that. But then if something is proves that it can help them get to the next level, like if someone wants to work in the government and someone like me, like mentoring them, says, oh, CISSP is a game changer for that, then they'll go do that. But it's not just like stacking certs for the sake of it. So you have somewhat of an old school mentality on that, a little bit more now than later, but that is a good way to keep learning. I mean, if you have to study and pass the test, you're going to keep doing it. And also, how you said you present a lot, that's also a great way to keep learning, because before you can share that information, you have to know it well enough yourself. You're doing research, because for every hour presentation, it's been said that it takes at least like 5 hours of preparation. So
at least.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You know, it's funny, the IIA event that I just did, I had to do 2 hours on ethics, right? So how do you present 2 hours on ethics to a room of hundreds of people and make it seem interesting? So I a lot of case studies, I compare different organizations, ethics, code of ethics. And in the case studies, I use like Christmas characters. So I took like Bruce Willis, turned him into an IT auditor, like from Die Hard, and he worked for the Nakatomi Corporation as an IT auditor. And then I created a confidentiality scenario around that. And so every scenario had a different character from a movie, like Grinch or Buddy the Elf, stuff like that.
That's a great way to describe it.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. Great answers, Matthew. So where can people find you if they want to connect?
Oh, well, you could find me on LinkedIn. I believe if you do a search for MBD Cyber, that's kind of the extension there for the URL. But yeah, definitely reach out to me and connect. Or you can go to ZAVIANT.com. That's our company website. And yeah, we would love to help you out.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much for joining us, and have a great day.
Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, guys.
Bye.